All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Awakening to Happiness Now Global Series. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And if you are new to me, new to my channel, new to my show, please do subscribe. It's my privilege, joy, and honor to bring these wonderful speakers who are sharing their wisdom, their teachings, their experiences, their activations, their readings, etc., for us all, so that we can learn for sure, and also to grow and thrive in our lives and our experiences. And so today, my dear friend Matthew John is back with us, and we love having him on the show. I always learn so much. He always teaches so much. He's a great teacher and shares so much wisdom. Today, we're talking about alchemizing Lemurian and Atlantean Karma. And so some of what we're going to talk about today is what Lemuria and Atlantis were really like, the events that led to the demise of both Lemuria and Atlantis, so where we find remnants of Lemuria and Atlantis today, and how the energetic legacy and karma of Lemuria and Atlantis carries over to today, and how to know whether you are a Lemurian or Atlantean soul, how to know what your specific Lemurian or Atlantean karma contains, and how to reclaim the spiritual gifts and wisdom that you had in Lemuria and Atlantis or Atlantis. And of course, we always talk about so much, so it's going to be so much fun. And of course, Matthew will be doing some live readings today for a few folks to show you your Lemurian or Atlantean lives and to tell you about any karma that you have carried over from those times. So if you would like to get a reading, be selected for a reading, raise your hand, and we will get to that in a little bit. And so for those of you who may not know Matthew, like I said, he's been with us many times. We love having him. It's always a high vibe call, always lots of information and wisdom. And of course, the readings are always spot on that Matthew does, which is, I mean, that's one of the things I love about the times when Matthew comes on, because the readings are just spot on and so detailed. It's amazing. So he is an internationally recognized spiritual teacher, an intuitive, a psychic, a medium, a trance channeler, an intuitive astrologer, starseed guide, energy healer, medical intuitive, speaker, and spiritual life coach and mentor, working with angels and the archangels, ascended masters, and galactics. He is, like I said, a gifted intuitive, right? And he's been on this journey of awakening for about 15 years. His powerful and effective teachings and healings are a product of many intense awakening experiences, deeply human ordeals, and tens of thousands of hours of study. He receives clear guidance from his guides, which he shares with his followers and clients from around the world. He specializes in helping others to heal their childhood and past life traumas, reading people's life plans from a soul perspective, as well as serving as an activator and a mentor for starseeds and those who are looking to accelerate their spiritual development. So we'll talk to Matthew a little bit more about his gifts and his talents, and it always comes through as he's speaking anyways. So please join me in welcoming Matthew back to the show. Matthew, welcome. So glad you're here. This is going to be such an interesting conversation today.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite topics, and I've spent a lot of time and had a lot of wonderful experiences in the astral realms exploring Lemuria and Atlantis. So it's absolutely one of my passions to share everything I know, and we'll do that on today's call.
Absolutely. And I'm sure a lot of us feel like we, were in Atlantis or in Lemuria or both, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, everyone likely that's, whether with us in the Zoom room or watching the recording, it's very likely if you're finding this sort of content, you are on a conscious awakening journey and you are in what I term the ascension life. The ascension life is when your soul kind of says, okay, now I'm going to turn the light switch on and we're going to transition from simply accumulating karma, playing with karmic soul contracts back and forth, to actually alchemizing all the remaining karma that is in your field so you can actually move forward and move up vibrationally in an ascension process. Essentially, ascension means to move up vibrationally, and that's what's happening. And as you're doing that, you're going to start to remember all sorts of things about you from outside of the context of this single lifetime. You're going to start to have remembrances of past lives on Earth. You're going to start to have remembrances of lives outside of Earth. And we have other calls, look back on Shefali's channel, to see some of our other calls about starseeds, right? Because that's another of my favorite topics. But part of what the remembrances might be are lifetimes in Lemuria and or Atlantis. So yes, it's very likely that if you found this call, you did have at least one life in Lemuria and or Atlantis, and perhaps more.
Yeah, absolutely. And so and that's what's so fascinating is that the more that we are all awakening and, raising our consciousness and vibration on this journey, we are recovering more and more of our memories. We are getting a sense of the greater journey we've had. We know it's not just this one lifetime, and we know it's not just this planet either, right? So that's another story, right? Like when we talk
Yeah.
about star seeds and all that. But I think most of us are now quite aware that we have had experiences elsewhere, other times, etc. And I know for a lot of us, those feelings of being in Atlantis, especially at the end, can sometimes still bring up a lot of traumatic and emotions for all of us, right? I know we're
Absolutely.
going to
Yeah.
talk about that during the call, but it's like
Yeah.
that is one of the big key things about those memories of Atlantis is that we feel that. And for Lemuria, I think I don't think I don't anyways remember the end times of Lemuria, but for me it's more about everyday life, how that was like, in Lemuria. So it's interesting what we will remember and what our soul is helping us to recall, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to dig into every corner of this in today's masterclass. And, absolutely, some of us experience life, our lifetime or lifetimes during the good times in Lemuria or the good times in Atlantis, when really we had a true, or at least almost a true fifth dimensional society in both Lemuria and Atlantis on Earth. This was, we could say, between about 13,000 and maybe 11,000 years ago. Or it's maybe 14 and 12, but it's around 13,000 years ago is kind of the marker that I've always understood. And some of us, though, deliberately chose lifetimes that were at the end of Lemuria and Atlantis, and they ended together because there was a great war and a great flood on this planet, which we'll talk about today. And there are emotions that if we look really deep within our unconscious mind, if we look really deep within our energy field, we can access those. And that's something that I've experienced, several times is in meditation, actually re-experiencing, seeing what the end of Lemuria was like and feeling the trauma of it again. And I've also led a lot of people through my group calls to do that as well. And of course, those of you that end up going on to join the Ascending as One program, we're going to have calls coming up on connecting with Lemuria and Atlantis, full-length 3-hour calls where we'll take journeys into both. So we'll go even deeper than today's call. But even on today's call, we're gonna go pretty in depth.
Yeah. So I was just, I just had this thought that, for those of us who are here right now on the call live, if you want to share in the chat, just briefly, if you feel like, you were in Atlantis, you were in Lemuria, and what kind of sense you got from that as we continue our conversation. But just share in the chat if you feel like, for all of us, just so that we can
Yeah, for sure.
get a sense of who all is experiencing those memories, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
let's
that'd be
talk about
great.
what I know, right? It's always so interesting to see what other people are remembering or what they're feeling about those times.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what were Lemuria and Atlantis really like? Let's start there. The good times. Let's start with the good times
Yeah,
first.
the good times were really good, and the not so good times were really not so good. But essentially, okay, first of all, where were they? Lemuria was in the Pacific. Atlantis was in the Atlantic. Makes sense. So the remnant, we have still remnants of both of these lost continents here on Earth. So in the Pacific, in the West, Hawaii, those islands, which are really, if you research, you understand that the Hawaiian Islands are actually volcanic. They're the top of volcanoes, and the rest of the volcanoes are actually under the ocean, which is so amazing, right? But that used to all be land. 13,000 years ago, that was all land, and that was Lemuria. So if you kind of imagine a map of the world, a globe, where Lemuria was that area that is now all the Pacific Ocean. 13,000 years ago, the continents looked completely different. Easter Island, which is in the South Pacific, right, has remnants. The Easter Island statues, right? Think about those monoliths of those stone monoliths, the faces, right? Those are left over from Lemuria, and the people that live on Easter Island, the indigenous people, they know those stories have been passed down through generations that was Lemuria, right? So Lemuria was in the west. Atlantis was in the east. So a lot of us, have been on cruises to some of the islands in the Atlantic, whether it be the Cayman Islands or the U.S. Virgin Islands or the British Virgin Islands or whatever. Those islands and those archipelagos in the Atlantic Ocean, those are remnants of Atlantis. And there, a lot of you, or probably all of you, have heard of the Bermuda Triangle, right? So the Bermuda Triangle is this kind of triangle you can draw on a map in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Florida to the east, where there have been all sorts of, really oddities over the years, planes disappearing, ships disappearing, weird creatures, UFOs being reported, time anomalies being reported, like, pilots, reporting that they had the same amount of fuel exiting the Bermuda Triangle as coming in, like they were just kind of teleported, or ships reporting, a time anomaly, again, like they traveled through it, but when they looked at the clocks, no time had passed. There's all sorts of, books and videos about anomalies in Bermuda Triangle, and I, recommend just for fun, checking it out. But the idea is, okay, why does the Bermuda Triangle have that effect? Is because there's still an Atlantean great crystal that resides underneath the ocean, directly underneath the Bermuda Triangle. So in Atlantis, again, during the good times, Atlantis had free energy, as did Lemuria. And what Edgar Cayce saw, the great psychic, and what I've seen is that there were these, everywhere you went on the roads, or if you were traveling in the sky, there were these giant crystals all around. I mean, giant. I mean, think of like an NFL stadium. I mean, giant crystals that were kind of glowing in light, and they all formed a grid with one another. And then these giant crystals also formed a grid with all sorts of smaller, like relay crystals. So think about the model of how we, have power on our planet now, right? The model of how we have power on our planet now is, okay, we have a nuclear power plant. Well, that's like one of the great Atlantean crystals. And then we have all of these relay stations, right? Everywhere you have a power line with a transformer on top, that's like a relay station. Well, in Atlantis, instead of transformers, they were crystals. And these crystals would all be relaying this free energy. The closest that I could describe it is scalar, is, like you have the amazing Tom Palladino on once in a while. Tom is, figured out, he's an amazing soul. He's figured out how to harness scalar energy for physical healing, right? And we had that in Atlantis and Lemuria, but we also had it for power. And honestly, that's where I see the future. I'm kind of a futurist, and I do see the future of us as a civilization now on Earth moving towards scalar energy. And I think the in-betweens between where we're at now with primarily, nuclear fission power is the next step will be nuclear fusion, which scientists have already developed, but there's not a confidence yet in actually being able to create nuclear fusion power plants. outside of The Sims, I remember playing The Sims in like 1998, and you could actually build nuclear fusion power plants. So The Sims was pretty futuristic. But that'll be the stepping stone towards actually scalar energy, where eventually everything is going to be run on scalar energy. Eventually, we're going to have, like Atlantis, a crystal, a relay crystal in our home. Quartz, your phone, all of the technology in your phone is made out of quartz, right? That's all it's going to take is just understanding the principles of how free energy works, like Tesla, taught and wrote about, and I'm sure the CIA knows all about, but it's just, of course, suppressed because, well, oil is what are the most profitable industries on planet Earth? GOD, gold, oil, drugs. And this is how secret wings of government sustain, like the CIA, sustain themselves: gold, oil, drugs. So this, the oil companies are still one of the most powerful conglomerates on planet Earth. The oil companies have been telling us since the 1980s, global warming. First they said, global warming, it's not going to happen. Then they said, oh yeah, it is happening, but it's your fault. So we need you to stop consuming so much. That was the narrative change to it's your fault, right? But what's happening now? Well, you and I live up here in southern Ontario, western New York, right? We had the warmest winter on record, right? There's mosquitoes out in March. The weather's getting really weird, really strange, really quickly, right? And it can't come soon enough. This scalar energy can't come soon enough. It's just being suppressed by the oil companies, essentially. But in Atlantis, we had that, and it was how life was, right? So there is a giant Atlantean crystal probably underneath the Bermuda Triangle that is still somewhat active. Yeah, Lori says, ridiculous here in Western New York. I know, it was like we barely had a winter this year, right? We had 50 inches of snow in Rochester, which most of the country would be like, oh my God. But here, that's nothing. It's literally nothing, right? In Toronto, there wasn't much snow either, But so Atlantis was highly technological, highly, highly technological. There were the Tesla cars we see now are inching us towards that type of vehicles they actually had in Atlantis. Of course, they weren't burning fossil fuels in Atlantis. These vehicles were running on the scalar energy. The stepping stone to that here on Earth is 5G and 6G. The thing is, though, 5G and 6G are a reflection of a third density consciousness because they cause harm to organisms, right? A bird, next to a 5G tower isn't going to be a bird much longer, right? So but at the same time, everything is non-dual. And on the other side of the token, it's the Atlantean type stepping stone towards where your vehicles are not running on some sort of internal combustion. They're simply relaying energy that's being relayed throughout this crystal network. And that's how they're running. And not only that, so, we had vehicles, Tesla-like vehicles in Atlantis, but we also had, think about, Back to the beginning of Back to the Future 2, where Doc's driving in the sky with the sunglasses on, and he's like, goddamn cabbies, right? There's like an exit, there's traffic in the sky. Well, that was in Atlantis. I mean, it wasn't just ground vehicles, but there were also vehicles above the ground that were flying and flying that way. You could also teleport. You could teleport between different points. My understanding is that it took a certain amount of wealth to be able to access teleportation. It actually also took a certain amount of wealth to be able to access any of at least as time went on in Atlantis, greed became the MO of Atlantis. And just like in the West, just like in the United States, where, you just, you broke your leg. Well, can you afford to get it fixed? If not, we're going to, slap you with debt for the rest of your life, where you can file bankruptcy and ruin your credit. In Canada, it's different, thankfully. But here in the U.S., there's no free healthcare unless you're very poor. It's very ironic, right? But it's always been like that. And in Atlantis, there was a similar twinge of this greed where if you wanted access to the best healing technologies that could instantly heal disease, or if you wanted access to the spiritual masters that were teaching, you know, how to move reality with telekinesis, you know, the true history of the galaxy, you would have to have access to wealth. So there was a sort of capitalistic society. Capitalism actually roots itself in Atlantis, which is where is the home of capitalism in the world? It's the United States, right? What currency is the benchmark for the entire economy of the planet and will be forever until things change? The United States, right? Because the United States is New Atlantis. This is the East Coast and think about it, the East Coast United States is where essentially the world is run. New York, DC, right? Politically DC, financially New York. The East Coast United States, this Atlantis was here, right? Atlantis, the continent of Atlantis, you know, if you draw a map, it went all the way up to the East Coast United States. And in the new iteration of society, post-Atlantis, post-Lemuria, well, when you know it, New York and DC kind of end up being the control centers of the entire planet. So the Atlantean legacy of capitalism and of greed and of world domination and all that, it survived in a way, and it just reemerged in the United States, right? So it's very interesting to think about that. Another thing with Atlantis is that we're living in this age of like 1984 type disinformation, misinformation. It's hard to know what's real anymore. A lot of people go way overboard with that and are now just living in complete illusion, which isn't good either. But, you know, in Atlantis, that started to become a problem as well, where there was a lot of suppression of information. And it did become a lot like 1984, where we're always at war with East. What was it? East. Someone type in the chat. 1984. They were always at war with East something. But the point is they were always at war so that the people remained in fear and remained loyal to the government, right? Well, in Atlantis, there started to become the formation of these two very distinct political factions. Interestingly enough, how many main political parties have always existed in the United States in recent memory? Two, right? And they've become more violently and diametrically opposed than ever before, right? In the modern day. Well, that also has its roots in Atlantis, where there were two main political parties who each would tell their followers something completely different, a completely different version of reality. Oh, the other side is doing this, you better prepare for war. Oh, Lemuria is doing this as well, you better prepare for war, you better prepare to fight. And Atlantis started to become really militaristic like the United States. You know, the vast majority of yours and I's tax dollars goes towards weapons, right? How fun is that to think about? So it started to, that it was the element of greed. As soon as that element of greed started to really infiltrate like a virus, and it roots back to the reptilians and the Anunnaki, who were very much at the top of the pyramid. Atlantis had an Illuminati, just like we do in modern day. The roots of the Illuminati also go back to Atlantis, right, of the modern day Illuminati. And that was the reptilians at the very top of the pyramid. And that's where that energy of greed and hyper-capitalism started to come down. But there was a time before things started to kind of sour, before the milk started to sour, where the milk was very tasty. And Atlantis was a very happy, high-dimensional, and extremely technologically advanced society. It was by far the most technologically advanced society that Earth had ever had. Now let's go to the West in Lemuria. Lemuria had a totally different vibe to it. Lemuria was, if Atlantis is New York City, Lemuria is an eco-farming community in Costa Rica, where the government has very little influence on And it's essentially, people working together to create this sort of society, a utopian type society. And in Lemuria, when things were good, it was it was a utopian society where, it was very similar to the Pleiades. On the Pleiades, they live in these wonderful communities with one another, these wonderful communities where they raise each other's children, where they grow food all together, where they, hold ritual space. They hold rituals in prayer and meditation and healing sessions together. They work in harmony with the animal kingdom, complete harmony with the animal kingdom. Nothing they do can possibly cause any harm to animals because they work in harmony with the animals. They literally speak with representatives from the animal kingdom, and they work in harmony with plants. They don't nothing they do harms anything. And Lemuria was like that, where everything we did, when I say we, because I was there, I wasn't in Atlantis. So everything we did in Lemuria was in harmony with nature, and it was in harmony with the elements. It was in harmony with air, wind, fire, and water. And the kind of energetic legacy of Lemuria, we could say we find in paganism, where in paganism, speaking of today's date, in paganism, we don't pray or honor any deity. Just God is God, but it's the elements, right? What is the most sacred to us are the elements. That's the essence of paganism, right? Air, wind, fire, and water, right? Or, what am I saying? Air, wind, earth, and water. Sorry, air, wind. I was thinking of Earth, Wind, and Fire, the band, right? But no, air, wind, earth, and water. And so Lemuria was like that, where nothing harmed anything. Everything was done in, working in conjunction with the animals and the plants. We lived really peaceful lives. Atlantis started to become this, again, capitalistic. This, you ever go to Manhattan and you see East Asia? Yes, East Asia. Thank you, Malacca. Always at war with East Asia, right? In 1984, the book. If you haven't read 1984, read it. You have to read it once in your life, okay? It's like required reading for the ascension process, okay? It's a little dark, but it's important to understand the darkness. I'm a Scorpio. I am very comfortable with the darkness, right? So in Lemuria, it was like that, and it was very peaceful. I was going to say, you go to Manhattan and you see all these young, men in suits running around from work to this meeting, to this meeting, this meeting, and then they go to the bar and get drunk, and then they go to the strip club, and then they do cocaine, and then they sleep 4 hours, and they wake up and do it all again, right? That's Manhattan. That was the sort of vibe that Atlantis started to get. Again, Lemuria was the vibe of I don't know, they just had that Envision Festival in Costa Rica, right? Speaking of Costa Rica, it was the rain when I used to go to the rainbow gatherings. It was just community living with the earth, love, hugs, music, dance, play. Everything that was to be built was to be built as a community, like the Three of Pentacles vibe in the tarot. Everything was to be built as a community, where Atlantis was about the individual. Again, think about this. Lemuria, the boundaries of Lemuria to the west are what? Japan and Japan, right? Japan is the most communal. In astrology, I was thinking about this the other day. The United States is the first house. Japan is the seventh house. And how interesting that they clashed in World War II. And this is the lessons of the astrology we find ourselves in right now. Aries, Libra, the Libra Aries eclipse season, right? Libra is the seventh house. It's about the other. It's about merging with, working together with others. Aries, the first house, is about the self, right? It's about what can I create as an individual. During the next 4 weeks, we're being asked to, our souls are asking us to synthesize that and to find the middle road with that, right? So a lot of us are working on relationships, and a lot of us are also working on where we're going as an individual, and there's lessons around both. But if you kind of everything is a microcosm of everything else. So the first house is the U.S. The U.S. is the most individualistic place, right? Those of you that are immigrants from Europe or from, South America, or okay, well, maybe the country you come from, you're supposed to live in the same house. Generations are supposed to live in the same house, right? Where in the United States, there's this rhetoric that as soon as you turn 18, you're supposed to say, fuck you to your parents and leave, right? And sorry, I'm going to demonetize you. I don't think you're monetized anyways, but it always happens. Sorry. But that's the US, right? And that's Aries, the first house. So and then, Libra is the seventh house. That's Japan, which everything is community, right? There was just the news article about this supplement company in Japan where 5 people died and 100 got sick, right, from supplements, right? And there was the photo op opportunity, the AP photo op of the leaders of the company bowing essentially in shame, and in mea culpa, right? Because they had failed. And the CEO of the company said, "Do not buy our products anymore. We're very sorry." What American company would ever say that? None. An American company would say, "Oh, we'll do better in the future. This was an error with the company just said, that's it. We're done. We're done. Right? We failed you. We're done." And that's the Japanese culture, and that's the seventh house, right? And the Western boundaries of Lemuria is Japan, right? So the legacy of that culture of working together in harmony you can also see it in Hawaii, not just Japan, but Hawaii. Hawaii said, the Supreme Court of Hawaii recently said, we don't actually honor the Second Amendment here, that it is a part of our cultural history that we don't, as a community, we decide not to carry weapons. Obviously very controversial, but although it's a U.S. state, it's a completely different culture, and it's a kingdom, truly. If you look at the history of Hawaii, it is actually a kingdom that just happened to get statehood, right? And their laws are very different than the other 49 states. And again, that's the remnants of Lemuria. Everything we do is working together in harmony. It's Libra, the seventh house. So it's very interesting to see those legacies, right, passed down through generations. But Lemuria was as utopian as it could get. There were mer people. I just filmed a YouTube, probably won't be out for a while. I've got so many in the hamper, but I just filmed a video about mer people. And I've had a lot of clients over the years that have been mer people in Lemuria. Maybe some of you watching this, let us know in the Zoom chat. And the mer people would interact daily with the Lemurian land people. The Pleiadians felt very at home actually walking amongst the Lemurians. They would come and land their ships and greet us, and we would hold, community celebrations when they would come. The dolphins felt very comfortable to come right up to the shore with the mer people. The dolphins would assist in births. Lemurian women, if they lived near the ocean or they were able to get to the ocean, they would go into the ocean and the dolphins would come up and assist, and sometimes the mer people as well, and mermaids generally for that, and assist in actually birthing the child with a water birth, right? So Lemuria is so wrapped up, associated with water. Literally, if when you're in Lemuria, it's very likely that you were born in the water with a water birth, right? And, there's still that legacy. There's women nowadays, and I'm in full support of women that do this, that, have very natural water births rather than most of us that are born in a cold hospital, like 1984 with, a doctor signing a government contract, oh, you're now just a number, you're a social security number for the rest of your life, right? In Lemuria, it was, oh, here you are, a sacred being. Welcome, here, welcome through the water, right? So everything was completely working in harmony with the natural laws. Now, eventually, Lemuria also went sour, but it was very different. The reasons were very different. Atlantis, again, there were these two warring factions in Atlantis, and when those of you that end up going further, which I know a lot of you will, signing up for my Ascending as One group mentorship program through Shefali's special offer packages that she's offering us, we're going to have an entire 3-hour call connecting with Lemuria and an entire 3-hour call connecting with Atlantis live. You can also watch the recording. We'll take a literal astral journey that'll be an hour and a half, probably 2 each. And I'll go way more in depth into what happened than I can have time for this call. But briefly, these two warring factions in Atlantis got really crazy with each other, and it really divided Atlantis essentially into a civil war. And what one side was being told and what the other side was being told was so drastically different. It was very much propaganda on both sides. And part of the propaganda was Lemuria is gearing up to, like East Asia in 1984, Lemuria is gearing up to attack all of us, right? So not only do we have to defend and maybe attack the other faction here, but we also have to get ready for war with Lemuria. Lemuria had no interest in having a war with Atlantis. Lemuria just wanted to be left alone. Lemuria didn't have a military, but Atlantean people were not allowed to travel to Lemuria and vice versa. Because, at least when things started to go sour, because the civilizations were so different and there was so much fear about, again, it wasn't a true fifth dimensional society. It was close for a while. It was the closest we got, but then things started to kind of sour and we went really towards, realistically, back to a third dimensional society. And so in Lemuria, there was a small faction of elites. It wasn't the same as the Atlantean Illuminati, but there was a faction of those in Lemuria as well that had really gone into the energy of greed. A very small faction, and those were the ones that were in political power in Lemuria. Lemuria had governments as well. They just operated much less stringently or parentally as opposed to the Atlantean governments. Now, when that small group of people started to, through astral projection, be able to see what was going on in Atlantis and what the factions in Atlantis were planning, they got very fearful, right? They did start to actually purchase weaponry through the black market from Atlantis. And they were preparing to defend themselves eventually, if they had to. It never even got to that, because what happened at the end, basically, the one Atlantean faction decided to use these ray guns, essentially. Edgar Casey describes this really vividly, where there were these giant lasers essentially coming from the sky. Interestingly enough, if you do a little rabbit hole research, look at how our fires potentially started nowadays. There may be a similar technology, I don't know. But regardless, Edgar Casey saw, described, and I've seen them in visions, these colored laser rays that were massive, and they would bounce off the ionosphere, similar to maybe, who knows, maybe a technology that exists nowadays, and they would be able to target specific spots in the tectonic plates to create volcanoes and to create massive earthquakes. And these massive earthquakes and these massive earthquakes and volcanoes created tsunamis. And that was the Great Flood in the Bible. The Great Flood in the Bible was this flood that eviscerated all of planet Earth, essentially, and then we had to start anew. But it was because of weapons. It wasn't anything natural, an asteroid. It was weapons. And it was very likely at the same time an all-out war just went on, between these Atlantean factions, and they dropped atomic bombs as well. Which, I mean, hey, if we had atomic bombs in World War II, you know, I mean, they had that technology. That technology roots from Atlantis as well, right? So essentially, it was a world war that ended Lemuria and Atlantis. What I saw and a lot of Lemurians have seen was essentially a giant wall of water coming, hundreds of feet tall, and just holding hands and just ready to die. And but there had been Pleiadian ships that were helping those Lemurians that wanted to be relocated to the inner Earth to start a new society were able to, and the Pleiadian ships took us there. But a lot of us just decided we'd rather just die. We'd rather go down with the ship, and it was a choice essentially. And also, I don't know even if the Pleiadians had the capacity to take everyone, because there was, you know, tens of millions of people in Lemuria, if not hundreds of millions. But that's how Agartha got started. Agartha got started from the post-Lemurians that survived. Now, Atlantis, obviously, a lot of people died, but also there was a lot of survivors in Atlantis that they migrated up to the Nile, and they recreated the next iteration of society up in the Nile. Now, there were also societies that were living in, like, there was North America, but it looked a little different. There was Asia, but it looked a little different. All the continents looked a little different. There were more continents than there are now. There were more than 7. I think there were 9 then. And so there were a lot of people that weren't affected, that were way inland in certain places, that the great floods, you know, especially closer to the poles, that survived. And I believe a lot of indigenous people in both Asia, you know, like I think of Siberia, and I think of Mongolia, and I think those civilizations go back before Lemuria and Atlantis, because I don't think the floods made it up there. And I think, like in Canada, like northern Canada, I think ditto, where I don't think the floods made it up there. And then, you know, the Ice Age, like here, you know, we live on the Great Lakes, you and I. Well, Lake Ontario, how was Lake Ontario carved, right? How the Great Lakes are one of the wonders of the world. You know, if you've never been to Lake Michigan or Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, you look over, it looks like an ocean. The waves are literally as big as oceans, right? But it's fresh water, and it's, you know, it's quite an amazing creation. Well, you know, the Ice Age, the last Ice Age of the planet, dates back, similar in dates to the end of Lemuria. So what happened then? What did these types of, you know, nuclear, did this war or whatever? And I don't have the answers to all this, because there's interconnections between archaeology and geology and climatology that I will admit I'm not as qualified as those literal geologists, climatologists, and archaeologists, but I can relate my channeled information that, yeah, it would seem like it was a similar time. And you wonder if the Great Wars didn't have an impact in maybe a pole shift that created the Ice Age, right? That then carved out the Great Lakes, etc. But that's a little bit of I guess, a synopsis, right?
A lot of info already, for sure. Yeah. But it gives us a great, you know, like a general understanding of those times, of those, you know, what may have happened. And I know even in India, we have stories of a flood, you know, so like a major flood happening. So, you know, it's just interesting that the flood story, it's in many different areas of the world and in many different religions as well. Right, so that flood story is quite common. So it's there's some truth in that, for sure.
And I just want to clarify, like the Ice Age, like we're in what's called a warm interglacial cycle that began about 11,000 years ago. That's what coincides exactly with the end of Atlantis and Lemuria, as far as I know. but the Ice Age had begun far prior to that. So I don't really know the full answers. I just suspect that the wars that took place at the end of Atlantis and Lemuria and the flood, and that there were some major changes that maybe are, mainstream science doesn't acknowledge what I'm talking about. I would be labeled as just an entertainer or a wacko, right? But, there's a lot. Edgar Casey knew it for sure. And it's not just me, there's a ton of evidence about this stuff. And you just wonder what contribution this war had to the types of glacial changes on the planet that may have already been in process for 100,000 years before that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much research that we can still do, to find out more answers. But generally, it seems like seems to be a truth that we've all seen and experienced in some way. Now, there's still so much more that we want to talk about, but do you want to take one or two quick questions right now?
Yeah,
And
sure.
then we'll continue, and then we'll take some
and
more.
there's some interesting chats, by the way. Let's see. Gail says I was part of a diplomatic faction and was assassinated for my views of wanting peace. So I'm guessing, Gail, that was in Atlantis, right? That was in Atlantis. Very interesting. See, I've had a lot of clients over the years that they tell me they remember that they were like part of scientific teams in Atlantis that were building atomic bombs or working on these ray guns, and they like a handful of people have come to me over the years and told me they feel a tremendous amount of guilt that in this life they remember, and they feel this guilt for like destroying the planet. And it is true that a lot, there were people that even maybe you're watching this call and you were one of the bad guys in Atlantis, and that's okay. We were all of us have played the role of a bad guy in many other lifetimes. It's how karma works. We desire to experience both sides of karma and all experiences. So it's just interesting that Atlantis was very complex, and there were really, there were also these mystery schools in Atlantis where there were these, it was extraterrestrial information and techniques that were being taught, that these were true like fifth dimensional teachers. But again, it was someone in the minority, and it had to take wealth or knowing someone to be able to have access to that type of knowledge. But that did exist. The mystery schools absolutely existed in Atlantis. And despite this like growing capitalistic society that looked like Times Square, that, with giant LED screens and holographic screens and everywhere, it was like, it was like in Back to the Future 2 when they went to 2014, right? But it despite that, there were still these really highly spiritual lineages. But in Lemuria, almost everyone was interested in advancing spiritually, and there were all sorts of mystery schools. They were open to everyone. I was, in another body. I was a man that was a teacher, like a really highly regarded teacher in Lemuria, kind of like a wizard, right? And I'm a wizard again in this life. And so I remember that. So it's just interesting to hear like all these different stories. I've heard stories of people, again, were mer people in Lemuria, or people, they remember who their families were in Lemuria, or they remember, what their job was in Atlantis, and they were just kind of a normal person. And a lot of you might be watching and be like, oh God, I wish I could remember, right? I wish I could know who I am, who I was. Well, raise your hand. Let's do a few readings and I'll see what I can pick up. And then, we won't have time for everyone, but those of you that don't have the opportunity, or those of you that want to go deeper, sign up for package B or C of the Ascending as One program. Again, Shefali is so gracious to offer these really great discounts for my programs. And, you can get 2 or 3 personal readings with me spread out, and we can go absolutely not just into who you were in Lemuria or Atlantis, but also where you came from in the stars. And also we'll talk about this life and your soul contracts and your future. So absolutely, I'd like to help shed as much light as I can on who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have quite a few people with their hands raised, and I don't know, I can't quite see everybody for some reason in the thing here. So let me just look some other way. Uh, okay. Wow, there's a lot of people with their hands raised. I can really see a lot of them. Okay, who do you want to work with first, Matthew?
Well, I love giving people, that I haven't, that I haven't done readings for before the shot first. So
Yeah,
I don't remember Autumn. I think let's go to Autumn.
cool. Autumn, are you
Hi.
there? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. I've never had a reading with you. I'm so excited.
Oh, good. So do you have like any feeling about having been in Lemuria or Atlantis? I'm just
I
curious.
did like a Beyond Quantum Healing one time.
Yeah.
And somebody there said that I was in Atlantis, but I don't really know. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me see what my guides show me on this. So,
okay.
Yeah, you were in Atlantis. Absolutely, you were in Atlantis. And I can I see you were a woman. You were tall.
I'm so short in this life.
Yeah. Well, we all have lives. I'm short-ish too. We all have lives where we're tall, short. I was on an airplane recently, come back from Denver, and I've always my whole life been jealous of like tall men. Right? I mean, if you're a man, it's like it sucks when you get dealt the short or shortish card, right? And I'm looking up at this guy who's probably like 6'4", and then all of a sudden he hits his head on like the exit light sign getting into the plane. I'm like, that's the one positive thing about being short is I never have to worry about that. And everyone laughed. So, okay, let's see. Atlantis. So you're in Atlantis. I do see you as a woman, a tall woman, kind of dressed in. You wore these like long dresses. You had a husband who worked in some sort of part of the government, and you had children, 3 boys, and it was a pretty happy life. But it was also towards the end. I think you were in the end of Atlantis because I get visions of when everything went into war, and it was very scary. And your husband had been in the government, and he kind of knew that stuff was coming, and there wasn't much you could do about it. So yeah, and I would say one of the things I want to try to shed light on for people. I mean, the name of this call is, karma, Lemurian and Atlantean karma. So karma doesn't just mean, oh, you did something bad. Karma is any experience.
Yeah.
Any experience. And it's the emotional residue of the experience that can be carried over through lifetimes, right? So, that lifetime, there's, I'd say the emotional or karmic remnants on a, some level within are of probably of some sort of fear of the future, perhaps, and fear of safety, like fear of being attacked or fear of being singled out in some way, again, because in that life, your husband was part of the government. And there's other lifetimes I think you've had where, and we all do this as souls, where you wanted to replay that energy of like, oh, am I safe? Am I going to be singled out, etc. So Does that make sense on some level?
Yeah. Is it okay to ask, like, do you know if I've been with that husband again?
I see that as a soul that you've had many different experiences with, a lot of family experiences,
Mm-hmm.
where you tend to play siblings or mother son, mother daughter, etc. I don't see that as a current partner for
Okay.
you, but I see it as maybe your father in this life.
Oh, wow.
But
Interesting.
there's a very close bond
Yeah.
where you two have like, and then from off planet, you both are Sirian. I feel um, Sirian and Lyran. You're Lyran, but they think you know each other from Sirius, and that's a whole nother call. But
That's
yeah,
funny
that's
because my dad actually worked for the government in this life.
yeah, and that makes sense, right? Because
Yeah.
in the Ascension life, we need to alchemize all the karma.
Yeah.
So in Atlantis, it was obviously a very poignant, fearful time. It
Yeah.
just there's just a trickle, a remnant of that karma, but part of clearing it out fully, yeah, you play a similar role. He works for the government, and you don't,
That's so
right?
interesting.
It is, yeah. It's interesting how that works out, right?
Yeah.
So, and
Right, awesome.
yeah, and if you want to go deeper, package B and C have private sessions. Package B has 2 private sessions. Package C has 3. So we can go in deeper in the Starseed stuff and the soul contract with your dad if you're interested, and anything else. So
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Thank you.
amazing, yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
Great, thank you, Autumn. And I just want to point out too, just in case anybody has a question about that, um, our closest family members, siblings, parents, spouses, best friends, are usually people that we have had previous lifetimes with in other relationships, not necessarily the same relationship, but
Yeah,
other types of relationships. So we are part of our soul group that we're moving together in different lifetimes. So just always remember that. So like, sometimes when I think about it, it's like, like sometimes I feel like my daughter, she sometimes acts like my mother. So it's like, okay, maybe she was my mother in a previous life, right? Um, and even and my son, the same sort of dynamic, right? So it's like it's interesting just to remember that from time to time before we kind of get upset with our siblings or our parents or our children. It's like, why are they being like this? It's like, well,
yeah.
maybe this is something that they've carried forward from before, right?
Yeah, it has been, and this is like very relevant for the times we're in right now because we're on just coming off of the Libra eclipse, and again, the themes of the next couple weeks, especially, are about negotiating relationships and who we are as an individual and that balance between them. So yeah, remembering that you're inevitably your closest connections in this life, which generally are family, right? Inevitably, you had other experiences with them in other lifetimes, undoubtedly, inevitably, and usually a lot of other lifetimes, and usually playing a lot of different roles as well. And actually, we've done calls on this show, Shefali, where we talked more about past lives and about soul
Hmm.
contracts. So again, go to Shefali's YouTube channel and type in my name, Matthew John, and you'll see the whole archive of different shows we've done on all sorts of different fascinating topics. Her and I,
Yeah,
you and I, we pick a new amazing topic each time. So there's a great
yeah,
archive.
absolutely. Okay, so you want to do another one before we talk about
Yeah,
the
I would love
packages?
to. Carol also, I haven't worked with before.
Carol Huffman.
Yeah,
Is that me? Oh, I'm so shocked. Thank you. Thank you for taking my
yeah,
call, Matthew. Um,
absolutely.
I with this new energy that's coming through with relationships, I really wondered if you had any insights on my relationship with my husband. Do you need his name?
Sure, and
Joseph?
let's also, I want to also keep it on topic with Lemuria and Atlantis, so I can absolutely give a little input into that. But also, are you curious
I think
about
I'm Lemuria.
Lemurian? Yeah, are
I
you
think
curious about that?
felt
Can I
it.
can I
Yes,
can I look into
definitely.
that for you? Okay,
Please do.
yeah. So, all right, let's see what my guides say. So, Carol, Carol, you were definitely Lemurian. You had either show me 4 lifetimes in Lemuria. You're not in Atlantis. 4 lifetimes in Lemuria. 3 as a man, 1 as a woman. And let's see, you played all sorts of different roles. You really, you were kind of, you liked learning about magic, and you were kind of a magic man and a crystal healer and like a teacher of young children in some of these lifetimes. And in every lifetime, you had a spouse and you had children. One lifetime, as a woman, there was some difficult karma because your father had died of an accident in that life. But the 3 ones as a male were very positive. Now your husband. So is it a matter of trying to figure out which direction you're going? Has it been
Yes, yes,
rocky?
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long you been together?
20 years.
20
Yeah,
years.
20 years.
Yeah. Well, let's just see what I can. You just give the first name.
Joseph.
Joseph. Yeah. Okay.
Joe.
So I'm just gonna ask my guide. So Carol and Joe. It feels like there's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of. It just hasn't been working for a while, right? There's a heaviness. It seems like from a soul contract, you're really moving like this.
Okay. So it's not like I have a contract that I should stay with him. We both have a lot of health issues, and it's like I'm only staying with him because of health issues for him. I don't think he would
I
make
understand,
it.
yeah, and I
That's
can
all.
feel that there's not a heart energy as much anymore. It's more
Just that I love
the
him as a
chakra
human.
practical. There's not, from the soul contract perspective, there's nothing that says you have to, or you said you were going to. In fact, it's whatever's going to be best for both of our, how do I put this? I mean, independence comes up for me, but I guess a better word maybe is just for our energetic lightness and freedom. I think it's become very important for your soul. I don't think his soul, in him, understands it. He doesn't understand that as much. But I think for you, it's become more and more important than ever before. And, there are other possibilities as far as home health care, of course. But I wouldn't look at it as you made a commitment to, no matter what, take care of him, because I don't see that. I see the soul contract says at a certain point, if I need to have this freedom to move forward on my path, that's okay. That's okay, even if him as the person wouldn't fully understand. But I know this is super complex and I can't go deeper than that, on today's call. But if you want to go deeper with me, purchase one of the B or C packages, because we can do personal readings on this.
Great.
And
Thank
by
you
the way,
so much.
and one thing that I wrote about in my articles recently, my astrology articles and my podcast, that this is like a make or break season for relationships, where because of the strong eclipse season, we're coming into it. Those relationships, those marriages that are in a good place will strengthen through this a lot. And those marriages that were not in a good place and where there was this discordance will go much further into discordance and in the other direction, because this is like a soul contract activating type of eclipse season, where if in the soul contract it's time to move further, that will activate through this. And then in the 6 months to follow, the practicality of that may come about between this March 25th Libra eclipse and the October 2nd Libra eclipse. But again, you got to consider all the practical factors obviously as well. And, don't rush any decisions. There's no rush, but that's what was shown to me is this moving apart. So, and again, if I can help further, purchase one of the packages.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Oh my goodness, I felt like you were speaking to me, Matthew.
Really?
How
it kind of makes me sad, but I'm not surprised also.
Yeah. I'm not gonna think about it right now.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it. No, I know, but
we'll talk about that later. But yeah,
sure.
It's just it's the energy of the time, right?
It is. Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah, that was the title. By the way, the Higher Self channel on YouTube has all my astrology podcasts, so subscribe there. Those of you that don't, but yeah, the last podcast, an article was, new lunar eclipse in Libra, make or break for relationships. And that's the energy of it.
Yeah. Interesting. Really on point. Okay. So we will take a few more readings in a few minutes, but I wanted to take a minute and talk about the packages. Matthew shared the link in the chat. I've also shared the link in the chat as well. So I'm just going to share my screen in a second. Oh goodness, where is this thing I'm looking for? Here we go. Let me share my screen. Hold on. I'm still not used to this Windows thing, the way it operates. It's like I'm on a Windows computer and it's like, I don't like it. I'm just not used to it. I'm more used to the Mac. Okay. So this is Matthew's package. He has those 3 packages.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you talk about them, but just before you go into the details, there's packages A, B, and C. There's payment plans available on all 3 packages. And of course, if you are an Inner Circle member, please do use your gift code. All right, so package A is for 122. And I have to be honest, Matthew, just really quickly. Most people that have purchased their packages have purchased packages B and C because of the readings that are included, plus all of the other webinars that are also included. But mostly I think it's for the readings, because the readings that you offer are so spot on.
Yeah. I thank you. I am told very often that I am spot on. So thank you. But you're right. So packages B and C have the private readings within them. And the great thing about working with me is it's a progression. So you're going to have 1 reading a month, and package B has 2, package C has 3. So you get to work with me in a progression where every subsequent reading builds off the past one. But regardless of the package, you are a member in my wonderful Ascending as One program. This is my signature group mentorship program. This is where most of my time and effort in my career goes into. I put everything into this program. So these are Sunday calls. Once in a while, there's a Saturday call, 3-hour calls. There's no obligation to join the whole call. You can watch the recording. You can watch part of it. You can watch it twice. A lot of times people are like, oh, 3 hours, that's pretty long. And some people are like, I don't have time for that. And that's totally fine, because you can pick and choose which segments you want to watch if you go through the recording, or you can just join for a part of it. There's no obligation to have to join for every minute. The first hour of every call is astrology. So as I talked about, I'm an astrologer. I go way more in depth than I do on my astrology podcast. I go over literally not just the macro astrology of the eclipses and the full moons and the what Pluto and Uranus and Jupiter and Saturn are doing, but I go into the day-to-day of what aspects the moon is making, when is the moon going void, of course, and you get downloadable notes, so you can literally plan out the next week. Okay, Monday is a great day for this. It's not a good day for this. Wednesday is a great day for this. Thursday, I should pretty much avoid people. It really helps you to be able to plan out your life. And then we go into the healing topic. It's a different topic each week. So you're getting access with package A and B to April and June. May's an off month. And with package C, you're getting April, June, and September. So, or April, June, and August, sorry. So April, we have healing your throat chakra. We have connecting with Lemuria, as I talked about, and we have nutrition to Ascension. Okay. With package A, you're going to get 6 of these. June, we have healing your third eye chakra, connecting with Atlantis, as I already talked about. And then coaching skills 101. If you want to learn how to do life coaching, which is how I got started, that's going to be that's a new call that I'm offering. And then you get a whole bunch of wonderful recorded webinars, mastering your intuition, emotional freedom technique, tapping through the 7 chakras, all about angels, archangels, ascended masters, and spirit guides, powerful visualization techniques for Ascension, learn how to use your third eye, clearing your inner blocks to activate your maximum financial abundance. A lot of people wrote me via email and told me like all sorts of cool financial things that happened after watching that one. Spiritual hygiene, cord cutting, and grounding 101. So all of these are master classes, putting the past in the past. All of these are master classes. They're between 1.5 hours and 3.5 hours, usually around 2.5 hours. And I just put everything into these calls. Whatever the title of the topic is, you're going to learn more in 2 hours than you would in a lot of other people's multi-week or multi-month long courses. These are not introductory courses. These are master classes. As you can tell, I talk really fast. I'm from New York, and I just give you a ton of information in a very short period of time. And if you want to learn any of these, don't go and spend thousands of dollars on some marketer's, course. Start with these mini master classes, and you will be shocked at how much you will learn in the 2 hours or the 2.5 hours allotted to these master classes. So that's all package A. That's all package A. Package B includes the 2 private sessions. So that's going to upgrade you to the VIP tier of my Ascending as One call. So you're going to get 2 bonus group calls. You're going to get April 27th, how to do shamanic drumming, and also Sirian channeling. So I'm a trance channel for the Sirians, the extraterrestrials, a group of 5 Sirian extraterrestrials. So once a month on the VIP only calls, for 45 minutes, sometimes longer, I trance channel the Sirians. And what's cool is if you're on the live call, you can literally ask your question. You can type in your question to the Zoom chat, and I'll open my eyes once in a while and look at questions, and I'll ask the Sirians. And it's just so fascinating, the types of answers that come through. If you want a preview of the Sirian channeling to see how cool it is, again, go to the Higher Self channel. That's one of my 2 YouTube channels. I don't own the Higher Self, but I manage it. And I have my 2 Sirian channels, 2 Sirian channeling sessions posted on there. And also my channel is, of course, Matthew John on YouTube. But that how to do shamanic drumming and Sirian channeling call on the 27th of April. And then June 30th is another bonus call, healing your feminine and mother wounds and Sirian channeling. Again, you get those 2 private readings with me. Okay, you can ask me anything during these readings. You want to ask, am I a starseed? Where am I from? What past lives are related to my current difficulties? What is my soul asking for me to learn? What am I supposed to learn from a relationship? Like Carol just asked about her relationship. That's a very common topic you could ask me on one of these calls. You want to ask about Atlantis and Lemuria. You want to ask about changing jobs. You want to ask about moving. You want to ask about your outlook from spirit for the next year. Really anything at all. These calls are wide open. You can ask me anything, and it's intentional. I call them Ask Matthew Anything 20-minute readings. And then you're going to get a whole bunch of other bonus webinars, The Illusion of Ego, Healing with Colors, Intro to Candle and Moon Magic, Change Your Reality by Changing Your Words, How to Move On Completely from Your Ex, which is really valuable for this season when a lot of people, the title, I don't mean for it to sound harsh, it's really about soul contracts. It's about soul contracts, why separations happen, what is happening on a soul level when a separation is occurring, and what's next, and how soul contracts are written. And then we do some powerful techniques in there to heal your heart. Mansef Afkir, I know you've been on his show, Shefali, and he's been on yours, right? He always thanks me for that webinar. Really helps him moving on from a relationship that he had a few years ago. So I've had a lot of people give me amazing feedback about that webinar, helping them move through difficult relationships and move on and heal their heart. Creating the 5DU, the Human Energy Field 101. So you can see there's there's so much. There's no requirement to do all of these. What I recommend for people, when you purchase the package, you're going to get an email with all the links and the passcodes to stream all of these recordings. Just pick a few, okay? Go through the list, say, maybe even take a note, like, okay, I want to do creating the 5DU. I want to do the Human Energy Field 101. I want to do, how to move on from your ex. And then just watch like one a week. I don't expect people to watch all of them, but sometimes people do. And if you do, oh my God, you're going to learn so much. And then package C, okay, that's the biggest discount. That's the best value because that has a third month of the Ascending as one program. Again, you're going to get August as well. You're going to get the True Lionsgate activation on August 3rd. The True Lionsgate is on August 3rd, not August 8th. August 8th is the pop, we could say, Lionsgate. August 3rd is actually, what is the Lionsgate? It's how the ancient Egyptians celebrated the rising of Sirius, the heliacal rising of Sirius over the pyramids. And that's on the 3rd, not the 8th. So the 3rd is the true energy of the Lionsgate. And there's also a lot of dark powers that harness the 8-8 energy. And I don't even think it's a good idea to necessarily give your power to the 8-8, but do it on the 3rd. That's the true day. And we're going to do a powerful Lionsgate activation on that day. August 4th, healing your crown chakra. August 18th, stepping into your highest purpose. That's going to be a wonderful call. And then you also get the VIP, August 31st, how to do trance channeling. If you want to learn, look at the value you're getting in this, all you're going to learn. If you want to learn how to trance channel like me, I'm not going to charge thousands of dollars for it. I'm charging nothing for it. It's a part of the package. Okay. I'm going to teach you all I know about trance channeling, and we're going to practice on that call. I'm going to give you the opportunity, if you're feeling brave, to raise your hand and practice trance channeling for the group. So I'm a man of the people. I'm a Lemurian. Okay. I don't really care about money as much as I care about being able to help and teach. So that's why I provide such value, okay, in these packages that other people don't, because I want them to be accessible. So you get all of that. You also get more bonus calls, intro to mediumship. Okay, watch that call. Don't go spend thousands of dollars on some marketing guru who wants to teach you mediumship. Watch this call first. I give you literally all of the tools that you need to be able to channel spirits from the other side, channel people's loved ones from the other side. It's not as difficult as you think. You just need to, for all this stuff, all you need is a technique. I'm giving you the technique that I've figured out, that I've distilled over the past 15 years of study. And I'm just giving you the technique. Here it is on a silver platter. Here's the technique. And once you learn the technique for this stuff, just run with it, practice it. And you can do mediumship, you can do trance channeling, you can do energy healing, you can do visualization techniques that can literally, shift your health and other people's health. You can do all sorts of amazing things. Just learn the technique and then practice. And that's the opportunity presented with these recorded masterclasses on top of all the live ones. You also get Navigating the Dark Night of the Soul, a deeper level of forgiveness, addiction relief for light workers, and how to be a successful spiritual entrepreneur. Those of you that have a spiritual business and you're not making ends meet, okay, watch this webinar. Again, please, I'm begging you, don't spend thousands of dollars on a scammy new age business coach, because all the feedback I hear from my clients over the years about these scammy business coaches is that they get nothing out of it, or the amount they spend versus what they get out of it is completely disproportionate, okay? In general, the more you spend in the new age industry, the less you get. And that's one of the dark truths of this industry, because it really is an industry. And then there's real people like Shefali and me who are just trying to provide you value and bring you along without money being the big thing, that Atlantean money. We're trying to bring you along in a very Lemurian type way, I would say. Okay, watch this webinar first, How to Be a Successful Spiritual Entrepreneur, because I share with you literally all my secrets. How to build an email list, how to put on webinars, how to collaborate with others to grow your list, how to price your products, how to drive traffic to your website, like all the practical stuff that these business coaches charge thousands for. Usually it's about 5,000, these business coaching programs. I've never heard one good thing from people that spent that much money that they end up getting that much back in value. Okay, watch this first. It's free. It's included in the package. And then if you still need the business coach, go for it, right? I'm just telling you, I give a tremendous amount of value. Sometimes people look at these packages, they're like, can't even believe how much you get. It's like, yeah, because I want to teach first. That's what's most important to me. So here you are. I'm giving you all this. So take advantage of it. All right. And then there's more. Understanding and seeing your past lives, healing your inner child. So again, don't worry about doing all of them. Just pick what interests you most. Take advantage of the private readings with me and join the live calls that you are feeling called to. You want to do nutrition for ascension. You want to do how to do trance channeling, or do all of them. I'd love for you to do all of them. I'm welcoming you with open arms. But I just want you to know, this is it's like a spiritual buffet. This is a spiritual buffet, okay? You know, when you go to Old Country Buffet, or you go to Vegas and you go to the buffets, there's like almost no way you're going to be able to eat one of everything unless you're Homer Simpson, right? So what do you do? You're like, I'm going to try the potatoes. I'm going to try the steak. I'm going to try the eggs. I'm going to try the watermelon. So just think of it like this. It's a spiritual buffet. If you want the whole buffet, get package C. We have a 2-payment option. There's discounts if you're in Shefali's Inner Circle. Okay. And then pick and choose what you want to join, and you're going to get just a tremendous amount of value out of it.
Absolutely. I mean, as you were just speaking about everything, yeah, there's a lot. But the thing is, there's a lot of valuable information, a lot of valuable teaching. Some of you may want to do the inner child healing. Some of you may want to do the mediumship. Some of you may want to have more abundance in your life. And I know a lot of you are spiritual entrepreneurs, so maybe you need that little bit of that coaching and wisdom and information to help you with the practical steps to move forward. There's a lot. Plus, like I said, the live calls, plus the readings. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've always highly recommended Matthew, and I still do, because I think he's awesome. He's amazing. And it's not just that the readings are awesome and on point. He gives so much. There's there's so much, so definitely, if you can get package B or C, if you'd like to have that personal one-on-one reading with Matthew, plus all of the webinars and all of the ascending as one in membership. It's just like, for me, it's a no-brainer. If you've never worked with Matthew yet, it's a no-brainer. So for those of you who have, how amazing he is and how much he gives. So definitely check it out. Like I said, the links are in the chat, and of course they will be in the recordings. In the replay email as well, right? All right. So, well, that was a lot, Matthew. Thank you so much. So
Yeah.
I know we wanted to do one or two more quick readings.
Sure. Yeah, as many as you want. As many as you want.
Okay. So there's some questions in the chat. What's the podcast name again? Ascending as One. Is that the podcast, or are you talking about?
No, that's the program.
Else,
the program. The astrology podcast you could find on Higher Self. Just type in Higher Self on YouTube.
Okay. And Sunita is asking, is it possible to do programs and not the whole packages?
Absolutely.
What
Yeah.
does
As
that
I
mean?
said, pick and choose. Pick and choose. Okay. Just get, if you want, think of it like this. If you want private readings, get B or C. Okay. If you want the option to do all, if you want to be able to pick from the live calls in April, in June, and in August, do package C. Okay. If you want 3 readings, do package C. If you want to do 2 readings and you want to pick from April and June's calls, do package B. Okay. And again, look at the library as well. Maybe there's a recorded masterclass that's in package C that you want to make sure you don't miss. Maybe you are starting a spiritual business, or maybe you've been struggling with your spiritual business and you want to make sure you get that How to Be a Successful Spiritual Entrepreneur call. So then you want to do package C. So look at it as like, okay, the pick and choose, go through that sales, the page that's up on Shefali's website, and see, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. Do I need package B or do I need package C? And then, of course, if you just want an introduction to my work and you don't need you're doing pretty well, you don't need a live reading at this time with me, just do package A.
Yeah, absolutely.
Will
All
you tell
right,
us the
so-
lore of the Draconians? I talk about the Draconians a lot. I rant about the Illuminati and the Draconians quite a bit, actually. So not too much, but you know, I'm a truth teller. I'm a truth teller.
Okay, who, we still have lots of people with their hands raised.
And I have
Who do
a
you want to
great
work
sense
with
of
next?
humor. I have a great sense of humor. HUMOR, because I am American. Wish I had a flag. Pretend this is an American flag.
Yeah. In Canada, we say HUMOUR.
Yeah, I
and
know,
I
I
think
know.
in Europe as well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna do a few more quick readings.
Yeah. So, do we want to pick someone else that hasn't had a reading with me before?
How about Layla? She's really anxious, and I don't think she's ever
Sure.
worked with
I
you
think we
before.
may have talked to her before, but that's fine.
No, not yet. Can you hear me?
No. Okay. It's a different Layla.
It's a
Yeah.
different Layla, yeah. Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Very well.
I've been waiting a long time to meet with you, so thank you so much for taking
Sure.
the call.
Absolutely.
I know I'm over anxious today, but yes, I feel a strong connection with Lemuria, but also I'd like to know more about Atlanta. Like I said, I live in Victoria, so I know of Telos and all of that. I feel connected to that and a lot of Lemurian and Maui and all of that. I'd like to know more, how that fits, but also Atlantis especially, and then what Starseed. I know you've mentioned one or two that I feel connected with, but if you have anything on that. And one final note is it took 31 years for the relationship to transform, so don't give up. My
Well,
husband just had a huge
it
break.
It's
depends.
possible.
It's possible, but it depends. And for some people in the soul contract, it's just not going to happen. So
Right.
I understand what you're saying, but it's completely it's situational.
Yeah. Yes, no, I
but
just
good.
feel blessed that finally, after 31 years,
I'm happy for you. That's great. Good.
Thank
Good.
you.
Okay, so let me ask my guides about Layla and Atlantis. Okay. So I get that you had incarnations of both. I get that you had 3 in each. The Lemurian ones, you would experience. Can you mute?
Hold on. Yeah,
yourself?
Layla, can you mute for now? Because
Or
there's
can
an
you mute
echo.
her? Definitely, I think that'd be good. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so what I pick up is that Layla, you experience the end of Lemuria from the Lemurian perspective, but you also right before had been in Atlantis. Before that, it's like you were in Atlantis incarnated in the lead up, and then you decided to have a brief lifetime in Lemuria, like literally at the end. But you also did have lifetimes towards the middle. So you do kind of have the it's a very Libran energy because you wanted to experience both sides of it. And it was obviously a very different perspective from, Atlantis as from Lemuria. And that was intentional that you wanted to experience both unique and distinct perspectives as a soul. So that's an interesting piece of it. You are an Orion Starseed, and this is another interesting piece is that I'm an Orion Starseed as well. Sirian, Blue Avian, and Andromeda on top of that. But a lot of Orion Starseeds desired to experience the real difficult and the karmic parts of Lemuria and Atlantis because it's somewhat similar to what happened in Orion's belt when, during a certain part of our galactic history, someone just mentioned Draconians, right? Draconian beings have basically attacked all these innocent planets. Some of the planets were literally destroyed. Some of the planets were just completely taken over and governed by these beings that the people of the planet did not want to be governed by. And a lot of Orion starseeds one of the things they want to do on Earth is experience that sort of energy again. So they incarnated at the end of Atlantis and Lemuria in order to re-experience here on Earth that sort of energy of annihilation or of taking over. And it sounds kind of like masochistic, but what happens is when there's a real, I mean, I can't imagine it because I've seen it, but imagine your entire planet literally being destroyed, your entire planet being destroyed, right? And how traumatic that would be to have to go through. So, okay, that leads this like scar, this massive scar in your energy field, and you're going to have to heal that in some way. So in order to heal it, you say, all right, let me re-experience this in a different place, a new setting. So then you come and you re-experience it in Atlantis and Lemuria. And then you say, okay, well, I got that, but let me keep re-experiencing it in less severe ways until it's completely alchemized. Let me also make sure I get to experience the other side of it. Let me also make sure I get to experience what it's like to be a bad guy, what it's like to be a general or a lieutenant in a military that's going awry and hurting people. So then that's how karmic balance happens. You have to experience all sides of it. But that is part of the journey for so many Orion Starseeds is experiencing the end of Atlantis and Lemuria. So that's definitely a part of your star origins. They also tell me you're Pleiadian. They also tell me you've had Sirian lifetimes. They also tell me you've had Arcturian lifetimes and you're an Andromedan soul originally. So if you want to go more in depth into this stuff, again, get package B or C so we can do some one-on-ones and go more in depth.
Beautiful. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Layla. Lots of wonderful information. At least it'll give you some insight into who you are and, where you came from, etc. Right? And also at the same time, what you're experiencing now as you're moving forward. So good. Thank you. And it's so interesting always, I find, Matthew, when you are talking about people's different starseed origins, but not just the starseed origins, but also like where they've lived or where they've had experiences or where their soul, exactly, galactic traveler. Thank you, Gail.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, that's the term I use. Yeah.
Leela's traveled a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And
interesting to
that's
see
so
that.
common. A lot of I'd say most Andromedan souls Andromedan souls, what do I mean by that? I mean a soul that originates from the Andromeda galaxy, which is the Milky Way's big sister galaxy. And our scientists know that the Milky Way and the Andromeda are on this collision course, this very slow collision course toward one another, and eventually will become a super galaxy. But because of that, like a large percentage of the Milky Way is seeded from the Andromeda galaxy. So, a lot of starseeds that come originally from the Andromeda galaxy, they have, decided, okay, I want to experience all different, perspectives and different cultures and different types of incarnation throughout the Milky Way. So that's where you get that galactic traveler, where you've been 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 or 12 or 15 different types, just different types of star races. And then you could have hundreds or thousands of incarnations in each, and then hundreds or thousands of incarnations on Earth. And it's a lot. But that is absolutely something that I love reading for people. And if you do the private sessions with me, I'm absolutely happy to read your star origins for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's so much information there. All right. How about one more?
Yeah. I don't remember Hania or Daniele.
Yeah, I don't think you've worked with either one. So, Hania, are you there? 1, 2, 3, Hanya. Going.
Gonna try Daniele.
Yeah. All right, Daniele, are you there?
Hi there.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I asked about the
Sure.
draconians because it's just such a, I too feel like a fascist sometimes, but I'll take whatever you can give. Thank you.
You feel like a what?
A fascist, where
You
I'm
feel like a
super,
fascist.
yeah, where I have, and then I'm not heard. I don't feel acknowledged when I make demands, and my demands are, I would think educated and in fairness, but sometimes I have to relay it to, the mansplaining thing, but also to other women, to be heard. But
So in
it's
the
not
context of like relationships with family.
family, work, it happened in school, it's kind of like this constant thing that haunts me, I feel. And I just
So
want to
that I
shake
mean
it.
that's like that's a karmic thing where you come from lifetimes before this where you were not heard at all, like your needs were not only did they not matter, you just didn't have any rights, like essentially coming from lifetimes before this where you had no rights. And so okay, your soul has to have you learn in a very quick manner how to speak up for yourself. So part of that is the resistance. The resistance is important from a learning perspective because if like you incarnated into situations where you would just be heard, you wouldn't really get the lesson. So the point is that the resistance is teaching you better and better how to activate your throat chakra, which if I hope you end up joining Ascending as One, that's our April 14th call, is healing your throat chakra. And
Thank
so
you.
that's the main, or one of the main parts of the curriculum for you in this life is that throat chakra stuff. And it comes from not having any rights in the lifetimes before this. And then also everything is a reflection of the polarized opposite of it. And inevitably in another life, you said word fascist, but you were someone who probably played a role of someone who was a bit emotionally cold and maybe, in charge of others, but maybe not good at honoring others' desires. So it's not a punishment. It's just simply a need from your soul's perspective to balance and find that middle road in this whole theme of like being heard. And this is, exactly another aspect of the Libra Aries polarity. The Aries is being heard, Libra is being able to integrate and work together with others in relationship, right? So as far as Atlantis and Lemuria, I do get Atlantis for you. I do get Atlantis. I get one of each, and it's interesting, the duality, the juxtaposition of it. I think I feel, and I'm seeing in Atlantis, you play the role of a man, and you had kind of fell into power, and the themes of greed, I think, had gotten to you in that life. And then in Lemuria, you were a mother, and I see you doing drumming and talking with the animals and taking care of children, and it was extremely feminine. So you have the legacy of that, and you would make a great shamanic healer in this life as well, and a great healer of women. And but you also do have the experience of taking the male perspective in Atlantis and really being very much about power and accomplishment. And so you have the legacies of both in this life. So, and it's interesting how well those match up with exactly what you're talking about, and also the season right now, Libra and Aries. So, the alchemy of that it is all about the throat chakra. It is all about finding your purpose, your specific soul purpose, and who you're meant to be as a healer in this life. And through that, you will find yourself being heard. You're only not being heard because your soul is intentionally doing that so that you will learn who you are and what your purpose is and how you're meant to be of service on this planet. And through that, you won't experience that not being heard anymore. Does that make sense?
Awesome. Does that make sense, Daniele?
Very powerful. Thank you. Fantastic.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. And if you want to go deeper into all this stuff, again, Package B or C has those private sessions, of course.
And I just wanted to note as well, in the packages in B and C, there's a lot of healing also available in those webinars as well. It's not just coaching or wisdom. There's a lot of healing.
Yeah, there's a
as
lot
well.
of energy healing. Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
There is. Yes.
Because I know for something like that, for Daniele, I think she would also require a little bit of healing as well, right? And
well, for example, the chakra calls, which we do live, we do energy healing as a group for the chakra, and it's amazing the results. People absolutely feel the difference after the call where their chakra is all of a sudden open.
Yeah. Awesome. Good. I mean, there's just so much. It's like each time we're trying to point to something, that could be helpful, but there's like just a bunch. I think, that's what I'm saying. There's healing, there's wisdom, there's coaching, there's activations as well. There's teaching. There's so much teaching available. And I love what you said, Matthew, about don't go to these, marketing people and pay $5,000 for coaching or this or for that, because you're right. The information that we really need is available in these 2-hour master classes that you're teaching. And then it's just for us to implement it.
It's all very ironic. Like I have, for example, behind me, you see books. I have hundreds and hundreds of books. Books are $13, $15, $20, $25, right? They have all the information that you need to learn something, right? Okay. I've distilled information that maybe instead of reading a whole book into a very absorbable, watchable 2 or 2.5 hour webinar, right? I'm not a marketer. I never have been. You're not a marketer. But this industry is full of marketers, and there's people that do take advantage of. All they do is they repackage information and they spread it out into group calls or a coaching a track, and they put a really high price tag on it, and people get these like wide eyes, like, oh my god, if it's $4,999 or $997, got to end in a 7. It's gotta be it's gotta be the most amazing thing, and then they're very disappointed. And I found this irony is like, once you get to kind of a certain level, the more you spend, the less you get, and the less you spend, the more you get. And the packages that I have, these prices are, I would hope you would see as very reasonable. I think they're incredibly reasonable for everything you get, and I like to keep it affordable.
Absolutely. With everything you get, these like I said, these packages are a no-brainer, and there is a payment plan available as well, which most people have used that in the past too, is the payment plan, which is totally fine, right? So definitely, I would, if I wasn't part of the show, I would get the packages, right? But
for sure.
If I wasn't hosting the show, I would get the package C, especially because of the 3 readings, especially because of all the live calls and all of the webinars. It'll take you a while to go through all the webinars. There's no question, right? But like Matthew said, 1 a week, or see how you're called.
Just pick and choose. Pick and choose.
But basically, everything that you need is there. It's like, I always think afterwards, like, man, this is such a good program. Why didn't I do something like this? Like, I can't. Matthew gives so much. I just can't. I don't have the time. But Matthew puts everything, heart and soul, everything into his membership and into all these webinars. So hats off to you.
I sure do. Yeah, I sure do.
So if anybody has any questions about the packages, I'm just going to take a look quickly at the chat, because I lost my chat for a second there. Let's see, where was I? Yes, thank you, Hania and Daniele. I'm glad you both are happy with how it all worked out. It just works out perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I like the fact that Matthew is a New Yorker and his packages are so intense. Intense meaning so full, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it.
Absolutely. All right. So, any last words of wisdom for us before we go on this Easter weekend?
Yeah. So just the real energetically potent times we're in right now. I talked a lot about it, sprinkled throughout this call, but we talked a lot about the Libra side of things, the relationship side of things, but the Aries side of things, and that is going to become more of the theme at following the April 8th great American eclipse, Canadian eclipse, which we'll both get to see the full totality of, which will be amazing, right? And after that, the Aries themes are really going to be in play because that is an Aries solar eclipse. That energy during eclipse season, codes are downloaded to us, whether we know it or not. Codes are being integrated into our energy fields, and these codes are pushing us towards where we're meant to go. Where are we meant to go geographically? Where are we meant to go in a career or a job? What relationships are we meant to break away from? What relationships are meant to stay? Who are we meant to become? Like Danielle and I were just really talking about, right? That Aries energy is going to become really potent very soon. And we're already feeling, because we're in Aries season and because Mercury is retrograde in Aries, become clearer than ever before over the next couple weeks on who you are, the contribution you want to make to this planet, and how you want to make that contribution. And if you're feeling dissatisfied in your current career, you're only going to become more dissatisfied after this April 8th eclipse. And you're going to only feel more of a pressure to make some sort of change. If you're dissatisfied in your relationship, ditto. If you're dissatisfied in any way, you have to really get honest with yourself and say, okay, what do I really want to be doing here if I wasn't afraid? And Aries is the home of courage. And during Aries season, we are asked to get in touch with courage in all ways and to move through fear. And the way that you'll overcome, the title of this card was Alchemizing Lemurian and Atlantean Karma. Well, the way that you overcome karma in general, wherever it comes from, is through overcoming fear and doing things differently than before. So this is a season of busting through fear. Fear is going to come up. You got to feel the fear, but you can't let it drag you down anymore. You feel it and move through it anyways. And for those of you that have been in a dark night of the soul or really feeling a density, use this season to become as fearless as you can, more fearless than you've ever been, and to move in the direction your soul is intending you to move. Because if you're not listening to the whispers of your soul will start to get more aggressive and things will happen around you to force you to move. But ideally, just listening to your intuition, listening to those inner callings, and whatever it is you're afraid of, as you overcome it, that's how you truly alchemize your karmic stuff. And that's how you truly move to the intended stages of soul contracts that you're in. And that's how you end up having the most impact possible, the biggest energetic footprint, the positive energetic footprint that you can have on this planet, which is, the earmark of the ascension process, where we're all meant to have this energetic effect. And as a group, as a conglomerate, that's what creates the planetary ascension. So keep that theme of overcoming fear and stepping into courage and the spiritual warrior archetype, stepping in. I'll probably, in my next Aries Total Eclipse podcast, I'll talk about the spiritual warrior because it's very much aligned with the energy of Aries. Whether you're a man, woman, other, you have in you, you have the spiritual warrior, and think about there's a part of you that, yeah, I've done stuff I've been afraid of before. I've done stuff that I was reticent about. I've followed my intuition before. I've taken courageous steps in my life before, even if they were difficult. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. I can do this. And you'll really set yourself up for an amazing next 6 months and 12 months and beyond if you're able to just fearlessly listen to your intuition at this time. And if you're in a really good place right now, then just use this time to strengthen your existing relationships. Use this time to become even clearer about who you are, and to move forward, especially with Mercury retrograde in Aries, move forward with projects you would put on the back burner. So just depending on where you are, again, if you've been in a real dark night, this time is really crucial for you. If you're doing pretty well right now, just use it to refine and enjoy, and again, stuff that's been on the back burner, you can reaccess.
Thank you. Lots of wisdom to close off the show, but I just want to go back really quickly. Carol had a question in the chat, and I just want to make sure I understand, Carol. And she said, so with package 3, we have 3 months to view what is offered. No,
unlimited
all
time.
of the webinars are recorded. You can download all of the live calls are recorded, which you'll be able to download, so you have access to them forever.
Yeah. So the live calls for package C, the Ascending as One program, this might be where the confusion is, isn't every month. It's usually every other month. So you have April, May's an off month, you have June, July's an off month, then you have August. But you have access to the recordings. If you do package C, there's 21 recorded master classes. You have access to those as soon as you purchase. As soon as you purchase, you're sent all of those links and the passcodes. Just click on the link, type in the passcode, you can start watching today. And then for the live classes, you'll have access immediately after each live call to those recordings. You can also download the notes as well. So it's lifetime access for this stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And so really, go back and watch this again. Of course, I always say that every time, but go back and watch or listen to this again, because there's so much wisdom. And if you resonated with what Matthew was talking about Lemuria, about Atlantis, he is having some calls coming up in the Ascending as One about all that. But of course, you can always, work with him one-on-one in the readings and ask your questions as well there. And one of the things that you can do as well is when you're having a reading with Matthew, you can ask, what are my gifts? What am I here to do? Or what gifts did I bring with me from Lemuria, from Atlantis, etc. You can ask anything like that as well, or from, whichever planet you were coming from. You can always ask those types of questions too, because I know it's a big topic for a lot of people, as well as soul purpose. You can always ask, what does my soul want to do now, kind of thing. And sometimes I have that question. It's like, okay, what's next? There's like, so much change. It's like, okay, what's next? But
I'm pretty good at that stuff.
Possible.
I'm pretty good at feeling into that stuff for people, and giving them direction on where they're heading.
Yeah. Like I said, Matthew's always spot on. And with me, when he's worked with me and done readings for me, it's always been spot on. So that's why I always recommend Matthew. So please work with him if you can. I will send out the recordings shortly in a little while. So please do, again, watch and listen. Please work with Matthew. I guess I think the first call is coming up in a couple of weeks, Matthew, right?
April 14th is the first live call for the Ascending as One for April. Yep.
Yeah, awesome. So, that is coming up, but in the meantime, all of the downloads are available as soon as you purchase as well, right? For all.
And as soon as you purchase, you can schedule your private sessions as well.
That's right, for packages B and C. Yes, absolutely. A lot. So thank you so much, everyone. Happy Easter. Have a great weekend. I'm always available, but there's no live calls until Monday. For those of you who are part of the inner circle, we are having a call on Monday, so I will see you then at 4 p.m. Eastern. All right, so thank you so much, everyone. Until next time, may you continue to be blessed with an abundance of joy, peace, love, happiness, prosperity, and radiant health. Sending you all so much love and blessings. Bye for now.